Hi everyone, welcome back. What the freak is up? This video is something a little special. It is my first collaboration. This is a collaboration slash interview with PD Morrin. PD Morrin is a Dublin-based Irish breadtuber who likes to call what he does Irish leftist nonsense. And I found him because whenever I made my first video, he not only shared it, he also commented on it, and whenever I asked a question that I thought was a little bit out there about collaborating, he was surprisingly up for it, and I'm really excited about this. So for context, I am a Celtic pagan. I mainly worship the Morrigan, and starting to get into a little bit of loose stuff and also just general druidic nonsense since I am a forest person. I grew up in the woods, and there are some real asshole fairies out in the backyard for my whole life, basically. So whenever I had my idea to do a bunch of weird left videos for October, I wanted to think about doing something that kind of goes along with that, which is the longer lasting impact of Druidism and paganism on Irish culture. So I figured, who better to talk about that than somebody who is not pagan but does live in Ireland and might know kind of like the longer lasting, really old shit that Catholicism couldn't really get rid of. So with further ado, let's get started. Hi, it's really nice to talk to you outside of Twitter DMs. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this weird shit with me. And thank you just in general for being, you know, a really nice and chill person.
Thanks so much for having me on, Abby. The pleasure's all mine. It's really nice to be here and to engage with you and to watch your channel grow. It's really, really awesome. And yeah, anytime you want me to do any weird shit with you, just please let me know. I'm always down for it. But with that in mind, I do want to just put a little disclaimer up there for anyone who's watching this now. I'm not a pagan. I'm not a religious person really in any kind of way. So everything I'm saying is very much about the feels rather than the reals, so maybe just take everything I say with a little pinch of salt.
So, first question is, the thing that people keep hearing about in Ireland, people not paving over fairy circles, and whenever I say fairy circles, I mean the little things with mushrooms, not the really big Neolithic structures. Is that a true thing? And what's the general consensus about those things, and have you ever stepped through one?
So with regard to fairy rings, I gotta be completely honest, I didn't actually know what you were talking about the first time you mentioned those to me in our Twitter DMs. You're talking about like those little mushroom rings. I had never heard about those until you had brought them to my attention just now. The big Neolithic monuments, like the fairy forts or whatever they are, they're protected and they're like a really, really important part of like our culture, and we really try our best to preserve those as much as possible. But with regard to the fairy rings, I don't think I've ever seen one before, and I've never had any experience with them. It wasn't, to my knowledge anyway, something that we grew up conscious of or cognizant of, you know. So maybe I've stepped through one before, just ignorantly stepped into one, like accidentally, but not to my knowledge anyway. Maybe something funky happened. I don't know. Sorry.
So, obviously I'm in the States, and Samhain, as celebrated as Halloween in the United States, is a super popular thing, especially in my area because there's a lot of Irish people where I'm from. So how big is it in Ireland, and how do people celebrate it?
This is always interesting to me when people are talking about Halloween, Samhain. And because I never realized, okay, this sounds so absurd. When I was little, I didn't realize that this was an Irish holiday. I didn't realize that its roots, came from Ireland and stuff like that. So for me, it was just like normal. It was just like the realism that I grew up within. So yeah, Halloween or Samhain is huge in Ireland. But I think that the tradition and the way we celebrate it is very similar to how it's done in the US. So, like all the kids go out and they go trick or treating. I don't think we have the culture where kids will throw toilet paper over houses or anything like that if they don't get like sweets or candy, as they say in the US. I don't think that's really done over here quite as much. They definitely do all kinds of messing. They definitely will, be teenagers, be kids, mess things up a little bit, but they generally don't target property, at least to my knowledge. One thing that we do, and there might be like an interesting historical reason for this, I don't know, but it might be worth investigating. Bonfires are huge here, just these big massive fires that we would have at the end of our streets or like in large green areas. There would just be these massive fires and everybody like young and old would get together and like drink around them and party and celebrate and stuff like that. Of course, this is all completely illegal, but yeah, everybody does it and it's Halloween, so people don't really, there are some arrests, but for the most part people aren't really prosecuted for it. Aside from that, I think it's just mostly the usual, skeletons and ghosts and vampires and all of those things leading up to Halloween, which, at this time of year, you can start to see it happening now already. It's definitely become something that's very like commodified, and, you can see it, from September onwards, you can see like shops everywhere just trying to sell Halloween to you as an idea. Again, I don't know if that's like sort of, if that permeates like most of the Western world or if that's just an Irish thing. Maybe Irish and US thing. I don't know. It might be interesting to hear from people who aren't from Ireland or the US talking about this and whether or not it's still relevant for them.
Okay, this is editing Leah just popping in to say, I forgot to mention in my video that the reason that there are a lot of bonfires for Halloween and Samhain is because it was one of the ways that Neolithic peoples would scare away the spirits, kind of like the masks would disguise themselves. The bonfires and the light and the heat would keep away fairies, the dead, demons, any manner of supernatural creatures that they were afraid of. Okay. So when there are discussions about pre-Christian Ireland, there's not really a lot to go off of over here. But I want to know what information has been disseminated over to you, throughout your general existence for what the Druids and pagans and other people believed before the Christianization of Ireland. Did they go over that a lot? Did they go over the pantheon? Or was it all pretty much just Catholic hegemony?
I'm trying to think of a word to describe this accurately. Christ washing? Maybe that works? I don't know. No, I never heard anything about pagans or druids growing up. It was all about Catholicism. Everything we heard about it was, like from school, from the media, from everything. As you said, Catholic hegemony was like really strong for me growing up in the 1990s in Ireland. And so they controlled like what was on the syllabus in the schools, like when we were learning about history or geography or anything. It was all kind of through this Catholic lens. I've said this before to other people, but even things like issues of like belief versus science and stuff like that, whether this table exists and God exists, they're treated as though like they were the same thing. This table exists and God exists. It's not a case of, I believe God exists and I can prove that this table exists scientifically through a bunch of different methods. No, it was just simply, this is a fact. It's a fact that this table exists. It's a fact that God exists. And so when we talk about things like pre-Christian or pre-Catholic Ireland, we don't hear about it. All they want to tell us is about the parts that suit their narrative of Ireland being this pious Catholic country, So yeah, I'm afraid that I actually don't have, really any knowledge about it. I mean, I had some friends growing up who were really interested in paganism and they would tell me about it every now and then, but that was it. It was like, I never got it from any kind of institutions,
So in Celtic-inspired paganism, there are 8 main holidays: Yule, Imbolc, Ostera, Beltane, Litha, Lugnazat, Mabon, and Samhain. And a lot of these holidays are still celebrated in some context or other in Ireland today. St. Bridget's Day is Imbolc. St. Patrick's Day is at the spring equinox. May Day has replaced Beltane. St. Michaelmas or St. Michael's Day is Luchnaza. Halloween, obviously, is Samhain. And the fall equinox is Mabon, which ended recently, which is great time. And then Yule is celebrated with the winter solstice and Christmas. What, if any, context are these holidays still celebrated in today in Ireland?
Abby, I'm so jealous that you know way more about Ireland than I do. Because, yeah, I really didn't know that, this was related, like, that these holidays were related to St. Bridget's Day or St. Patrick's Day. Actually, I didn't even know that St. Bridget's Day was a thing. I've never heard of that before. But I'm sure it is. I'm just so, like, plugged out and disconnected from that world that I just don't know about it, So, yeah, as I said before, like, Halloween is huge. Christmas is huge. Christmas is, super, super Catholic and Christian and stuff like that. They really, really try to hammer home the Catholic side of Christmas in Ireland, much less the kind of consumerist side of Christmas, which I think kind of is prevalent in a lot of parts of the world. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the big holidays that we would generally celebrate in Ireland, at least from my perspective, would have been like St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Halloween, and Christmas. Those are really like the big 4 that I can think of and that I remember celebrating. And all of them they would at least try to present them through a Catholic lens. Now, that was a little bit more difficult with Halloween. Halloween kind of escaped the Catholic sort of trap. And then, now they tried to like grab it and sort of take it as their own. And, so yeah, but I couldn't really say. I mean, it seems that some of these holidays were kind of subsumed into the Catholic canon, we might say. But yeah, we would never get that pagan history, that pagan context, which would lead to them.
Finally, in the US, we have seen a pretty significant rise in pagan and pre-Christian beliefs. Have you seen a similar rise out in Ireland, or does the Catholic Church still have that much of a domination over everything?
This is a really interesting question that you brought to me here, so thank you for asking this. First things first, I'm not a pagan. I think that if you ask a pagan themselves, they might be able to give you a much better answer to this particular question, I do notice 1 or 2 more people are a lot more actively interested in paganism, but as you said, there definitely is still that Catholic hegemony, and if I'm not mistaken, I think like the percentage of Irish people who identify as Catholic it's around about 78%. Now, you need to keep in mind that a lot of people who identify as Catholic are not actually practicing Catholics. And a lot of the time people wear Catholicism like kind of as part of their identity. It's almost more of a, let's say, a political badge rather than a spiritual ideology. They often will label themselves Catholics as to be distinct from, let's say, Protestants or those who they perceive to be British. So we're still dealing with this kind of post-colonial mindset that we have here in Ireland. But with that in mind, people who may have turned away from, let's say, Catholicism or more traditional forms of religion, yeah, there definitely are more people doing paganism now than there would have been, like, let's say 20, 30 years ago. But I think you probably need to ask someone who is more active and involved in that world to get a more complete and comprehensive answer. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm doing this for all of your questions. I'm just sort of saying like, yeah, maybe, but I don't know, because I don't know anything about this stuff. So yeah, I'm sorry that I'm not able to do the questions the justice that they deserve, but yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this. I hope we can talk about this kind of thing if you ever want to learn more, or if I ever want to learn more about Ireland, because my Nana was like super Irish, and so I'll hopefully talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was really, really nice to have this conversation with you. I'd love to continue it. If you ever want to come on to the Socialist Sunday stream, please let me know. That's the stream that's on sometimes on Catherine's channel, sometimes on Javi's channel, which is Cunhada de Esquerdas, and sometimes on my channel. So you're very welcome to come on at any time to talk to us about these issues, because, yeah, I think you're like the educator here. I think you're the one who knows way more about this stuff, and I'd really love to learn more about the history of Ireland from you. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and yeah, I look forward to talking to you again. Take care.
And that's it for this week's video. Don't forget to like and comment and platform the weird left, because we're pretty great people, if I do say so myself. See you all later.